Thank you. At LAVIS, or LAVIS, or LAVIS 2, 11 years ago, I was pleased to give a paper called Generating Linguistic Feature Maps with Statistics, which is similar in conception to my paper today. Thinking back to that conference, I'm reminded that it was the last time that I got to spend some quality time with my good friend and colleague Mike Miller. Mike died in 1994. His most detailed quantitative work appeared posthumously in 1999, a very thorough sociolinguistic study of plural formation in Augusta, Georgia. We am having a wonderful time here, but I just thought it might be appropriate for a moment to remember that not all of us who were here at the last one could be here at this one. Now, to get back to the subject at hand, looking back at my paper from the last LAVIS, or LAVIS, or LAVIS, then we were fully involved at the Atlas Project in trying to bring techniques from technical geography to Atlas work and to language variationists more generally. Technical geographers are of course interested in cartography and in the cultural side of geography, but they have a special interest in using computer and quantitative techniques to do these jobs. So at the last LAVIS, I guess I'll choose one, my paper began with an illustration of a geographic information system, this one actually, that I had programmed on a Macintosh computer that interactively provided basic descriptive statistics about the distribution of one of our features and automatically plotted it. Here is pale, which is supposed to be a northern form, but you'll notice it has lots of representation in the south. This interactive GIS was the model for what we've made available on the web now for about 10 years. The familiar map, this one is Pretty Day, also southern distribution basically. That paper also describes segmentation of the Middle and South Atlantic states, a region that I'll be referring to as LAMSIS, for those of you who haven't heard me do this before. And we split that up into a region of 3 by 6 grids, sometimes called quadrats, so that we could measure the word frequencies in each quadrat and compare them, and compare the ones in each region with social categories. I also illustrated then joint count analysis. This is another method for making maps with numbers in which the areas in which the research was conducted are compared based on whether they have the same data in them or different data in them. And you can run a statistic, as you see here, z-scores, on whether the data is significantly clustered or not. Finally, at the last LAVIS conference, I talked about a technique, density estimation technique. And this one makes an estimate of the likelihood of finding a piece of information of interest, here pale again, at any point in the survey area, and that's indicated by the relative darkness of the boxes. Now, each of these techniques is useful. Each one tells us something basic and important about the distribution of language in space and in society. I'm sorry that we haven't exploited the techniques in the last 11 years to make broader descriptions of American English, or more extensive descriptions of the English in the LAMSIS region, or to the fact that we've not been able to attract funding to digitize or otherwise convert more data to submit to the analysis. This is a problem for quantitative analysis. You have to have the data. Perhaps the future will bring us more success in that. Now, of course, our Atlas work is not the only source of quantitative analysis of Southern English or of English of other American regions. Bob Shackleton and John Nirvan, both here today, have developed innovative quantitative methods, and I look forward to hearing their papers, perhaps more than giving my own. A great many others have compared vowel or word frequencies in the South with statistics like bar rule or various types of ANOVA, cluster, regression, different statistics. And I'd like to refer you to a forthcoming book, should be out in June now here, from John Benjamin. It's called Advanced Statistical Techniques in Linguistics, I guess. Is that it, Dennis? Edited by Bob Bailey and Dennis Preston. There's no shortage of effort to apply quantitative techniques to American English, and especially to its most distinctive regional variant, Southern English. The problem with all of these quantitative techniques is that they have yet to show us what Southern English is. And thus, by extension, they have also yet to show us how Southern English may be changing. We all know that Southern English is down here somewhere below the Mason-Dixon line. But as Dennis Preston and Susan Tomasi have shown us before and have again at this meeting, we all tend to mean something different by the label Southern English. Preston's subjects for his latest 2 talk, 96% of them anyway, could only achieve consensus about where Southern English was spoken for a tiny area around Columbus, Georgia and Phoenix City, Alabama, as Dennis reminded us recently. Only about 50% of his subjects could agree on a fairly large area that many of us, well, I guess about 50% of us, would recognize as the South. Tomasi has shown more recently that the areas that subjects group together as having the same speech can often be discontinuous, not neat, coherent regions. And of course, we've long known that there's lots of variation in the English spoken by Southerners, measurably more variation than is found in the North, as many of us have written about before. Out of this welter of varying perceptions and varying language, the only conclusion that seems safe is that Southern English must really be a high-level abstraction, rather than any specific and systematic collection of linguistic features shared by a community of speakers. Further, the abstraction is one that even specialists like us all construct somewhat differently, so that we fool ourselves if we think that we're all talking about the same thing when we talk about Southern English. It's just this great complexity, wonderful complexity, I think, that justifies a special conference like that. I'd like for the rest of my time today to illustrate another advanced discovery method from technical geography, neural network analysis. I've been working for some time with Jean-Claude Thiel from Buffalo to develop a neural networks GIS application on the self-organizing maps principle. I'll be calling it SOM. We hope that the algorithm will be able to identify regions where the speakers behaved similarly at the time of our interviews based on the analysis of our LAVIS data files. Thiel and his associates in Buffalo have built an application, and my job has been to prepare the data with Susan Tomasi's assistance, thank you, and to validate the output. So on to self-organizing maps. And this is a live program. Please bear with me if I screw it up. I hope not. And this is the opening screen. You'll see settings here. What you'll expect is a matrix of nodes, of dots. In this case, 10 by 10. It's user selectable to some extent. We are counting missing data here. We're measuring missing data points. The search radius and epochs are technical matters that I won't go into at this point. And the number of patterns that the program will create ranges here from 2 to 5. It will actually make from 2 to 9. And we'll see an example of that later. So all we have to do is select some nodes. Now, while I'm selecting the nodes, I'll tell you that this data is our usual LAMSIS data. You can see that we do have a few files that we can submit to this process. And I'll pick out quarter of, which is one of our shibboleths in dialectology. And how about that pretty day file that we had up a minute ago? There are 1,162 speakers in the linguistic atlas of the Middle and South Atlantic states. The data responses from each speaker are included in our data files, and the speakers could have more than one answer, so it's multiple response data, which complicates the statistics, but I won't go into that. And let's get one more.